The Daniel Jones era is over for the New York Giants, and I'll be breaking down every facet of this development coming up next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all of my written work, as well as that of my team. And as always, welcome on into my Blue Crew community members, to my everydayers, to my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And we're coming to you a little bit earlier than usual because, ladies and gentlemen, it has happened. The Giants have decided to bench quarterback Daniel Jones after 10 games this season, just up and down all over the place. Not the ending that either side really wanted. So the Giants are going to roll with Tommy DeVito as their starting quarterback. Now, what I'm going to do on today's show, this kind of an emergency podcast, if you will, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the timing, what went into the decision, the ramifications, the cap, why they chose DeVito over Locke, and just some other general thoughts about the whole situation, which is just very unfortunate for all sides involved. So that's going to be our show today. And again, thank you for tuning in. And by the way, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, let's start with the obvious. Now, for weeks, I know I've been saying that the Giants have got to move on. They have to bench Daniel Jones. You see the inconsistency in his play. You see the plays that are not being made. And look, you can sit there and you can say, well, Daniel Jones is the reason why the Giants are on a 5-game losing streak and why the season has gone down the toilet. It's not all on him. Let's be fair to the guy. It's not all on him. That being said, what you want in your franchise quarterback is you want the guy to ultimately rise above the X's and O's. You want him to be able to make the plays that are there to be made, to make the right decisions. You want him to be able to load the team up on his shoulders and carry them across the finish line. And folks, Daniel Jones did some of that in 2022 when he, really looked like he had turned the corner. But this season, he didn't. And going into this season, the plan all along was to see if Brian Daboll, who is a quarterback whisperer, despite, what has happened here, to see if he couldn't get Daniel Jones back on track. Because look, the poor play by Daniel Jones actually started last year before he had the injuries piled up on the team as well as for Jones. And it continued. Just not enough consistency from Jones. And there was some talk. It's kind of interesting. There was some talk over the weekend, and I had actually heard this as well, that the Giants' decision to bench Jones wasn't necessarily going to be a done deal. That's amongst the things they were going to consider was which quarterback gave them the best chance to win. And it was felt that despite his struggles, that Jones potentially can give them the best chance to win, despite his struggles. Now, that being said, staring them in the face, obviously, the $23 million injury guarantee, which the Giants were just flirting with fire every time they put him out there, especially given how he runs, how he doesn't slide, how he leads with his head and his shoulder. That was definitely staring them in the face. Although they'll say it was a football decision, that's part of the football decision, folks. So you had that staring them in the face. The other thing, there was a sentiment that they may stick with him, that they might stick with him this week against Tampa. But the feeling was, well, if we stick with him and he doesn't do well again or something happens, now we have a short work week because we've got Dallas coming up in 4 days after we play the Bucs. And do we really want to, have to worry about a quarterback change then? So the timing of it factored in, because I think had the Giants maybe had an extra, had a full week in between the Tampa game and the Dallas game, would they have maybe gone in a different direction. It's possible. I don't think they would have personally, because I think, it should have ended, when it did. But there was some talk that there might be that they might give him, another week to try. I didn't think it was going to happen personally. The reports that I read, the reports that I heard, I didn't think it was going to happen because it didn't make sense. You spend the bye week, you start getting ready for whoever your next quarterback's going to be. And that next quarterback, believe it or not, is going to be Tommy DeVito. It's not going to be Drew Lock. So before I get to, why they went with Tommy Cutlets over Drew Lock, let's just talk about the ramifications of benching Daniel Jones. I mentioned the injury guarantee. The Giants and Jones, who are all but certain now to divorce in the upcoming offseason, the Giants will save $19.395 million on Jones's salary. Okay, so that injury guarantee will not kick in. And if the Giants cut him before the start of the league year, they will also not be on the hook for $12 million guaranteed money. So I fully expect Jones will be released before the start of the 2025 league year. Now the dead money is going to be $22.210 million in against the cap. It's Jones is not going to be, I don't think at any rate, he is not going to be a post June 1st transaction. I think the Giants are going to want that $19.395 million to spend in free agency next year. Really, folks, if you think about it, it's really an extra $11.105 million. Not really a bad, a deal breaker. It's a nice chunk of change, but the cap's going to go up. So I think, and this is why I think he's going to be a pre-June or a standard cut. The cap's going to go up. They're going to be able to absorb that. Hopefully they won't have to make any other, big cuts that necessitate more dead money being dumped into the cap. But, this is just how it was trending. It was unfortunate. They tried to get the most out of him. And again, the plan all along at the start of the season was to give him another opportunity. They figured with the better offensive line, they figured with Malik Neighbors, a number one receiver, with Dable calling the plays, everything was in place for Daniel Jones to do well. There were no more excuses. Some of you might say, well, what about the running game? Saquon Barkley, he wasn't there. Well, no, Saquon's not there, but Tyrone Tracy's doing pretty well. So you can't really even blame the running game. Unfortunately, Daniel just sees ghosts. He makes questionable decisions. He doesn't see plays that are there to be made. And decision has been made that he no longer is the guy to lead this offense. He is no longer the guy to lead this team. And look, I'll just close out this segment by saying it's unfortunate. I know I've spoken out about Daniel Jones. I know a lot of you have as well. I wanted him to do well because if he does well, the team does well. All right. So I did not want him to fail. I really wanted him to do well. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. I tried believing in him, but week after week, the evidence just kept stacking up to where I just couldn't do it anymore, as I'm sure is the case with a lot of you. So I don't wish Daniel Jones any ill will. I think a fresh start is going to benefit him, and he will get that fresh start next spring. And the Giants, they're just going to have to move on and find their next franchise quarterback because, they had hope that Jones was going to be the guy, and he's not. And here's a little piece of trivia for you, by the way. When Jones started his career back in 2019, his first game was against the Tampa Bay Bucks. His last game just fell short of a game against the Tampa Bay Bucks. So a little bit of trivia there. I know I'm stretching it a little bit, but just a little bit of trivia because the Bucks factor into, this whole, they're a little like side note, if you will. All right. Coming up next, why the Giants went with Tommy DeVito over Drew Lock. Don't go anywhere. I'll tell you why. Hey, Giant fans, pre-alcohol probiotic drink by ZBiotics is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut, and it's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make the pre-alcohol probiotic drink your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and pace yourself, and then get a good night's sleep to feel your best in the morning. Go to zbiotics.com/lockedonnfl to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use the promo code LockedOnNFL at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/lockedonnfl and use the promo code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off. That website is spelled zbiotics.com/lockedonnfl. Hey, Giant fans, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the very same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and the decision is in. Daniel Jones is out at starting quarterback. It's going to be Tommy DeVito. And folks, I'm going to get into why I think the Giants went with Tommy DeVito instead of Drew Lock in just a minute. But just real quick, as I record this, head coach Brian Dable has not yet addressed the media. He's going to address the media on Monday morning. Right now, I'm recording this. It's about 10:20 in the morning. So in about an hour plus or so, Dable is going to address the media. And I'm going to have complete coverage over on New York Giants on SI of what he had to say, as well as if there's anything of note, I'll come back with another mini podcast for you as I keep you updated on this breaking story for the New York Giants. All right. So according to the NFL Network, according to ESPN, and as confirmed, or at least told to me by sources, it's going to be Tommy DeVito and not Drew Lock. So why is that? Why DeVito over Drew Lock? And what does this mean for the Giants going forward? All right, let's start off with some basics. One of the things I mentioned in a show I did, I think it was last week when I talked about the quarterback situation. I think the title of the show was Drew or Tommy, and who would be the better option for the Giants. I felt that Tommy DeVito is a little bit more athletic than Drew Lock. And in terms of picking one or the other, which quarterback could best run the offense as it was meant to be run without much of a drop off? And I think DeVito's athleticism gave him a leg up in that competition. Now, what else gave DeVito a leg up in the competition? Two other things. Number one, DeVito, this is his second season in this offense, whereas it's Drew Lock's first. Number two, DeVito was healthy all preseason, all spring, dating back. So he was able to take his allotted reps. Drew Lock, he came in, was healthy during the preseason, took the reps for Daniel Jones, who at the time, remember, wasn't cleared to do everything because he was still recovering from the ACL. But come summer, Drew Lock got injured, if you remember, in the first preseason game. All right. So he got injured, and the coaches really never got a chance to evaluate Drew Lock in a game setting, a full game setting. So they did take a look at him in the blowout loss to the Eagles, and he just didn't fare well. There were questionable decisions made there. Just didn't look good. And remember, I always tell you guys, the media is not allowed to watch practice during the season. So we don't sit there, and it's not like we can chart which quarterback is doing what, keeping track of completions, incompletions, turnovers, and all that stuff. But I think it says quite a lot that, in the 10 weeks or so that, Drew Lock wasn't able to show enough maybe in practice to give the coaches, confidence that maybe he could be the guy instead of DeVito. And here's the other thing, folks, that just kind of really, really stinks, I think. The Giants spent $5 million guaranteed on Drew Lock, and he had an additional, I want to say, $3 million in incentives, which, by the way, the Giants can't pay out. They're pressed up against the cap. So I have a feeling that's another factor in this decision. The Giants are pressed up tight against the cap. So Drew Lock were to go in there, they're not going to be able to, they're going to have cap problems. So that being said, the Giants, they spent $5 million on Drew Lock, and he's not going to play. So just really, really bad management of that quarterback room, if you think about it. Now, some of you are saying, well, what happens to the tank? Leave Daniel Jones in there. They would have tanked. We would have gotten the number 2 pick. As I record this, the Giants are now, I think, number 5 in the draft order with 7 weeks to go. Folks, the Giants were never going to tank. I keep telling you this week after week, show after show when it comes up. That's not what Brian Dable is looking to do. He's looking to save his job. And DeVito, does he give him the best chance to save his job? I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is this. DeVito is cheaper than Drew Lock for the reasons that I mentioned about the salary cap and the incentives in Drew Lock's contract. DeVito has more experience in this system than Drew Lock. He has shown that the game is not too big for him, as evidenced by what we saw last year when he won 3 in a row, including one over Green Bay. And also, remember this, Drew Lock is not under contract next year. DeVito isn't either, but he's going to be an exclusive rights free agent. The Giants can get him back for cheap. And I get the feeling, based on how this all shaked out, that the Giants maybe are going to look to view DeVito as a potential bridge quarterback, depending on what they do in the offseason. Do they trade for a guy? Do they draft a guy? That's a topic we'll discuss on another show. So those are the reasons why I think the Giants went with Tommy Cutlets over Drew Lock. And again, the biggest one, and the Giants will never admit this, the biggest one, in my opinion, is the financials. Because the Giants, with their salary cap situation, according to Over the Cap, we'll take a look at their space here. The Giants have $2.865 million in cap space, which is the third lowest amount of all the NFL teams. They have tapped out as far as restructuring deals. All right. It's week 11 now of the season. I don't think they're going to restructure deals. I think they're going to roll with what they've got and just hope that what they have left is going to carry them through to the end of the regular season. It should be enough. Should be. It's the key word. All right. They weren't going to touch the Daniel Jones contract because to do that would have been pushing more dead money into the future, which they didn't want to do. So the cap situation also very much a factor in this decision to bench Daniel Jones and to start Tommy DeVito. So, folks, I know they said it was a football decision, but cap is all part of the football decision. All right, coming up next. So where do we go from here at quarterback? We'll talk about that as well as what to expect in the coming weeks with Tommy Cutlets at under center. Don't go anywhere. Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? It's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, you pay your rent and watch the built points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points toward a flight or hotel stay with over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them towards a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle free through Built Reward app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guys and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. Joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl to start earning points with your rent payment today. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and the Giants with some breaking news to start your Monday morning. They have benched Daniel Jones. They are going with Tommy DeVito. And again, please make sure you keep it here on the Locked On Giants podcast, as well as on New York Giants on SI, where I will have complete coverage of what head coach Brian Dable has to say, as well as coverage throughout the week. You know, on Wednesday, it's going to be a busy day. You're going to probably hear from DeVito. We may or may not hear from Jones. Just going to be a real lot of stuff going down this first week coming off the bye for the New York Giants, thanks to the quarterback switch. Okay, moving forward. Folks, I mentioned it before. Daniel Jones and the Giants are headed for a divorce. There's just no way that you're going to see a situation where, you know, like what the Colts did this past weekend, where they started, or I should say 2 weekends ago, when they brought back Anthony Richardson after benching him, right? Totally different situation now. Jones has had almost 6 years to show that he could be the guy. And he's had flashes. Not everything has been his fault. You know, I want to make that perfectly clear. But this year, he was set up to succeed. There were no more excuses, no more with the offensive line, no more with the not having a number one receiver, the play calling. All the excuses were removed. And at the end of the day, it just didn't work out. It's unfortunate, but that's how it is. All right. So now, what did the Giants do from here? Folks, I know a lot of you out there probably want one of the top 3 quarterbacks that are being touted: Milroe, Sanders, and Ward. Those are the top 3 guys that are being mentioned as potential first-round draft picks. Folks, I'm here to tell you, I'm not convinced right now that the Giants are going to draft the quarterback in the first round. You don't want to force a pick, as you know, which is why the Giants didn't draft one last year, which I felt they should have at least taken a gamble on, you know, on a Spencer Rattler and seen what he could do. I felt that was a mistake. But you don't want to you don't want to force a quarterback pick. So I could see a scenario where maybe the Giants look to get a quarterback in free agency. Now, Russell Wilson, whom they flirted with, he was, I think he's going to be a free agent after this year. So maybe the Giants take that savings from Daniel Jones and put it towards Russell Wilson. Maybe they put it towards another quarterback. All right. I haven't looked at the full list, but I believe what will potentially happen, the Giants will stick with DeVito as maybe a bridge, unless they get a veteran that can walk in and be like a day one starter right from the get-go. If not, DeVito becomes the bridge quarterback, and they groom a rookie, if there is a rookie out there that they feel good about. It's kind of early to say as far as the draft, because like I said, you know, the college football season is still going on. Then you have the all-star games, the bowl games, and all that stuff. So it's still kind of early. But I think if I'm the Giants, I maybe look towards a veteran in this instance. I think the veteran crop is going to be a little bit better this year, whereas last year the quarterback draft class was really good. And, you know, folks, if you've been watching me and reading me, you know I pounded the table hard for a quarterback last year. I felt, take somebody, even if you don't take him in the first round, get somebody in here, develop him so that if you have to move on from Jones, you have somebody ready who has gone through the system for a year. I also said that, if Jones proved out to be the guy, you could always turn around and flip the draft pick for in a trade, much like the 49ers did with Trey Lance. Giants did neither. And I'm sorry that was a decision. I spoke on yesterday's show about things that Joe Shane did right and did wrong. That's a decision I totally disagree with. And here's another one I totally disagree with. The fact that the Giants handed Daniel Jones the starting job and did not stage a legitimate competition. So all these mistakes have unfortunately come back to bite the Giants in the butt. They are now entering uncharted waters. Because think about it, year after year, this franchise enjoyed stability with Eli Manning. You knew Eli was always going to be there, that he was going to, give you his best and play at a high level. And we just haven't had that since. And it's unfortunate, but such is life. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for me on this early edition of Locked On Giants podcast, emergency podcast on the quarterback situation. Anything else breaks, I'll be back with you here on the YouTube channel as well as on the audio platforms. So make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, that you click that little notification bell so that you get notifications if I do post any more videos today or anytime. And also be sure to keep it on New York Giants on SI, where I'll have some written stuff from the Brian Dable conference call. Until next time, folks, have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.